for holding this important hearing today. The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly demonstrated how how critical transportation is to the nation's economy and the important role that millions of transportation workers across the country continue to play in delivering supplies where they're needed the most. These men and women have put themselves at risk of exposure to the virus to provide frontline healthcare workers with PPE and to keep store shelves stocked. They deserve the nation's sincere thanks, and I know members of this committee are interested in hearing today what Congress can do to better protect the transportation workforce as we embark on a path toward reopening and economic recovery. Mr. Gilliott, you mentioned in your testimony that despite the recent pandemic-related decline in demand, the trucking industry will need to hire over 1 million new drivers the next decade to keep up with freight demand. FMCSA recently issued waivers related to commercial learner permits and third-party testing, which ATA is encouraging the agency to make permanent. Could you elaborate on some of the challenges currently faced by the industry when it comes to driver training and testing and how permanency of these waivers could be helpful while still maintaining the highest level of safety?
Thank you for your question. During the pandemic, as most industries, we kept working in trucking, but yet our training and our CDL testing facilities, for the most part, is shut down with the recommendations of the CDC and the government saying for close proximity. So we're asking for exemptions concerning those topics and how we can continue training to continue getting our workforce back with a pipeline of drivers coming in. We've worked very well together with DOT and FMCSA on exemptions such as hours of service, and we feel very confident working with them going forward to help us with hiring and training drivers coming into the industry going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Jeffries, you mentioned in your testimony that COVID-19 cases among railroad employees have been low, thanks to early steps taken by the industry to keep the workforce safe and healthy. Has the industry encountered challenges in providing PPE to employees?
Thank you, Senator. So certainly early on in the process, the supply chain was stressed with providing those types of materials as the focus, I believe, was getting to medical workers, et cetera, as it should have been. But we have worked out a lot of those supply chain challenges and feel that we've got a good system in place. But that doesn't mean that that's going to continue to be the case moving forward, which is why we're supportive of legislation from members on this committee to make sure that frontline workers continue to be a priority, whether it's critical infrastructure, healthcare, other folks who are essential to keeping the country moving.
Well, and so as a follow-up to that, what steps is the railroad industry taking to ensure that employees continue to have adequate access to PPE and, as necessary, testing?
So right now, it's all being run through the railroads themselves. DOT also did provide masks as well, as it did to several different transportation industries that are being pushed out to employees. So it is based on strong relationships that have developed between the railroads and their suppliers. And quite frankly, they've been helpful, helping related companies and other stakeholders, even my organization, acquire PPE that's needed. But again, it's a question of ensuring that pipeline continues to flow in a manner that everybody who needs protective equipment to safely do their job continues to have access to that.
Okay. Thanks. Mr. Bozzella, the auto industry has acted swiftly in response to the crisis by manufacturing ventilators and PPE to aid frontline workers across the country. Could you describe any challenges the industry is facing with the current federal emergency use authorization guidance in place that could prevent your members from making an even larger impact?
Yes, thanks, Senator. The industry has made large numbers of PPE and medical devices, and there might be a concern if, in fact, the emergency declaration is withdrawn, that the EUAs would no longer be in effect, and that we would have to, we'd have these products would not be usable under federal guidance. That would be a bit of a concern if we're not clear on what the pathway of the pandemic is. And so we'd want to make sure that say, for example, a truck or a rail car filled with PPE on its way to first responders or auto workers, when the pandemic emergency declaration was withdrawn, would no longer be usable. That would be a concern. But so far, we're in pretty good shape.
Okay, well, we appreciate everything that you're all doing to help out with what is a very critical supply and a demand that needs to be met. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here, and we'll continue to follow up with you, I'm sure, as this pandemic continues to affect the country. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Thune. Senator Rosen.